Chapter 351. Xiao Xian's voice was filled with suppressed pain. He stretched out his hand and hugged Yiqing Luo's petite body. Light and slow, incomparably gentle. He didn't dare to use force, afraid that if he did, the person in his arms would be in pain. Slowly embracing Yiqing Luo into his arms, Xiao Xian's head, buried in her neck. The man's warm breath sprayed on her skin, like a ball of fire burning her. Perhaps it was because his action was very light, or perhaps it was the effect of the medicine he applied. Yiqing Luo totally didn't feel any pain. Even the internal injuries suffered in her internal organs didn't cause any pain because of the slight movement of her body. "I'm angry at myself, will let you get hurt." The man's voice in her neck was very low, indistinctly, a little unclear. But it wasn't hard to hear his tone vaguely. "I should protect you. Should protect you completely." His words, word by word, were like a warm current, flowing into Yiqing Luo's heart. Her brows overflowed with some tenderness, her charming eyes were filled with warmth. "It's not your fault, don't blame yourself, I will feel terrible." Xiao Xian's head slowly lifted up from her neck. That pair of glistening peach blossom eyes reflected Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up, smiling like a flower. Exquisite, peerless looks at this moment seemed to cover up all the beauty in the world. For pairs of eyes met, there was only each other in their eyes. "I know you care about me and want to protect me forever." Yiqing Luo's voice was as gentle as a feather, yet filled with seriousness and determination. "But Xian, I want to grow, want to become someone who can stand by your side, who can protect you. I'm not a woman who hides under a man's wings, relying on a man to survive. I don't want to not only be protected by you, I also want to protect you." Love was not a matter of one person but a matter of two people. It was originally mutual equality. Stick to each other, protect each other. Xiao Xian was strong, but it didn't mean that she only needed to enjoy Xiao Xian's strength to contribute for her. What she wanted to do was to stand by Xiao Xian's side like how he protected her, to protect her. Xiao Xian wasn't willing to see her get hurt and fall into danger. Was she willing to see Xiao Xian fall into danger for her? "This time I was careless and overconfident. I admit my mistake." Yiqing Luo stretched out her uninjured hand and her fair palm caressed Xiao Xian's face. "My Xian dotes on me, cares about me, and will absolutely not stop me from growing up, right?" The woman's eyes were resolute and the expression on her face was not as cold and proud as before. Instead, it was like a pool of warm water, gently wrapping around Xiao Xian's heart. Xiao Xian's heart was violently shaken. These words Yiqing Luo had told him before. However, each time he was shaken in a different way. This was the woman he fancied, the most unique woman in this world. He had always been at the top, respected and feared by tens of thousands. But only Yiqing Luo didn't care about his identity, didn't care about his power, and only treated him as an ordinary man. She would not ask for his protection, nor would she hide behind his back. She would take things as they came and enjoy a lifetime of peace. She said that she wanted to walk side by side with him to protect him. This was the first time someone said that she wanted to protect him. And it was a woman. Xiao Xian could deeply feel that Yiqing Luo treasured him. Chapter 352. Yiqing Luo smiled, her charming eyes curved, filled with infinite affection. The man's pale thin lips, with a trace of elegant sandalwood fragrance, lightly imprinted on her forehead. That sandalwood fragrance blurred Yiqing Luo's eyes. She only felt her eyelids heavy and fell into a deep sleep. The next day she was awakened by Lu Xiaoyu's knocking on the door. Opening her eyes, the room was quiet, only the sandalwood fragrance in the air proved Xiao Xian's existence last night. Yiqing Luo blinked her sleepy eyes, propped up her arm and got up. She then realized in shock that she was not as unbearably painful as she had imagined. The wound on her arm had been changed and bandaged. A burst of cool feeling stopped all the pain. She raised her hand and covered her chest. The profound jade heart at her heart was emitting warmth. Her entire internal organs were enveloped by that warmth. Although her body was not as relaxed as before, but moving like a normal person, there was no problem. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly lit up, her face overflowing with a smile. Xiao Xian he actually considered so thoroughly for her. Knowing that he was unable to change her decision and unable to see her endure the pain, He used his own way to protect her. The profound jade heart injected his energy during this period of time, was able to relieve the pain on the body. Compared to Bei Ming Lulu's medicinal pills, it was much more effective. Yiqing Luo came out of the room. The corners of her mouth hung an unconcealable smile. Lu Xiaoyu lightly knocked on the door, her face trying her best to pretend to be calm. But that smear of anxiety in her eyes collided into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Seeing Yiqing Luo come out, Lu Xiaoyu heaved a sigh of relief. Without leaving a trace, she sized her up. Training is about to be late, let's go quickly. Yiqing Luo nodded lightly, raised her eyes to see Lu Shuiyu still sitting in the hall, staring at her with a gloomy face. Still not dispelled the intention to test her? No wonder Lu Xiaoyu was so worried that she couldn't wait to directly barge into Yiqing Luo's room, but was afraid that her worry would let Lu Shuiyu know that Yiqing Luo was injured, so she forcibly endured it. Let's go. Yiqing Luo directly ignored Lu Shuiyu, stretched out her arm and directly held onto Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder as they walked towards the dormitory's entrance. When the two of them walked out of the door, Lu Shuiyu suddenly stood up and chased after them. She stared maliciously at Yiqing Luo's back view, her delicate brows tightly knitted into a bundle. Lu Shuiyu had also heard about the intruders in the training forest. Yiqing Jian had specially told her that one of the intruders looked extremely similar to Yiqing Luo. If that intruder was Yiqing Luo, the current Yiqing Luo should have suffered from an extremely serious internal injury, and without 10 days to half a month's rest, it was impossible for her to move. Last night when he saw Yiqing Luo and Lu Xiaoyu returning intimately, looking at Yiqing Luo's state, it was indeed a little strange. But now Yiqing Luo was no different from usual. Which one of her looked like someone who was seriously injured? Lu Shuiyu's eyebrows furrowed, her cold and elegant face twisted into a sinister expression. She clenched her fists, gritted her teeth and followed him out of the dormitory, walking in the direction of the freshman training ground. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected, they had just reached the training ground when they saw Yiqing Jian, who was surrounded by everyone, standing at the entrance. Her usual gentle gaze was now filled with seriousness, sizing up the freshman. See that's Three Springs Sec's eldest young miss, the #1 beauty in Three Springs City, Yiqing Jian. I heard that she had broken through to Earth Profound Realm during the actual combat training in High Profound class yesterday. Earth Profound? So powerful. No wonder she's a student from High Profound class. Chapter 353. Voices of discussion rose and fell in succession in the entire training ground. This other world had always believed in the rule of the strong. In the eyes of these freshmen, the High Profound class was a godlike existence. Especially when they heard that Yiqing Qian had broken through to the Earth Profound stage in the actual combat training, all the freshmen's gazes towards Yiqing Qian had turned into worship and ecstasy. Yiqing Luo understood Yiqing Qian's motive for coming here, but she pretended not to see her as she held Lu Xiaoyu and walked directly into the freshman training grounds. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Qian's eyes sunk as she called out to Yiqing Luo coldly. Yiqing Luo ignored her as though she didn't hear anything. This action infuriated Yiqing Qian. Yesterday, after she realized that the intruder was Yiqing Luo, she couldn't sleep at all. She specially asked Yiqing Luo's dormitory mate Lu Shuiyu to probe, but she didn't expect Lu Shuiyu to totally ignore her. For the entire night, Yiqing Qian's eyes seemed to be floating in the training forest. The red-robed lady's veil which was lifted and the outline which was vaguely revealed kept overlapping with Yiqing Luo's face. Tormented her for the entire night. Yiqing Qian had been waiting here for Yiqing Luo since early in the morning. Only by probing herself would she be able to ascertain if that red-robed lady was Yiqing Luo or not. The current her was feeling vexed as she suppressed her anger. Especially when she saw Yiqing Luo, who had tormented her for the entire night. This anger surged uncontrollably into her heart. Yiqing Qian shot a glance to the side. Following her were Shangguan Fangyi and Yan Zhenfei. Yesterday they had suffered such a huge loss in the hands of the intruder. If they were able to ascertain that Yiqing Luo was the intruder, they would absolutely not let her off easily. The two of them swiftly went up and blocked Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's slender eyes narrowed as her red lips curled into an enchanting cold arc. A good dog doesn't block the way, scram to one side. The minute she opened her mouth, she wasn't courteous at all. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly as she raised her hand to slap the arm which was placed horizontally in front of her. Shangguan Fangyi didn't expect Yiqing Luo to make a move as he suddenly withdrew his hand. But no matter how fast his reaction was, he wasn't able to match Yiqing Luo's speed. Yiqing Luo's hand looked like a casual slap, but her fingertips were extremely sharp. A gash appeared on his sleeve. It wasn't a big cut, but this action was like a vicious slap to Shangguan Fangyi's face. That rather handsome face instantly turned gloomy. Yiqing Luo. You dare to make a move in front of so many students. Are you trying to violate the Academy's rules? Violate the Academy's regulations? Yiqing Luo's charming eyes curved as she couldn't help but laugh out. Which eye of yours saw me making a move? You blocked my way without any explanation. Should I also say that you attacked me? Shangguan Fangyi's words were blocked and his face turned red. His tightly clenched fists were already bulging with veins as he forcefully suppressed his rage. Seventh sister. Yiqing Qian slowly walked towards her, the corners of her lips curled up into a faint smile as she spoke in a gentle tone. Eldest sister has something to ask you. Her expression was gentle, her smile was gentle, and her tone was gentle. However, the cold, probing and scrutinizing look in his eyes was extremely obvious. Yiqing Qian's brows creased slightly as she secretly had some doubts in her heart. Yesterday she had used 100% of her strength, completely charging her earth profound grade profound qi into the intruder's body. That intruder's profound grade was absolutely not high, so there was no way he could defend against her profound qi attack. Even if in the end the intruder rode on the Mirage Beast and escaped from the training forest. But that intruder would absolutely suffer an extremely serious internal injury, and without lying in bed for 10 days to half a month he would definitely not be able to climb up. Chapter 354. Yiqing Qian's brows creased slightly, as her beautiful eyes stared at Yiqing Luo's hand. Yesterday she had lashed the trespasser's arm with her whip. She could clearly see that the intruder's arm had been whipped till the flesh split open as fresh blood flowed out. With the profound qi of the earth profound realm, ordinary people would probably be crippled if they received that whip. Even if that intruder was not an ordinary person, after receiving that whip and her profound qi attacking her internal organs, that arm would be crippled if not crippled. But Yiqing Luo raised her hand to slap away Shangguan Fangyi's hand, which was coincidentally injured by her whip. Could it be that the intruder was really not Yiqing Luo? I heard that eldest sister has already broken through to the profound earth realm. You're indeed the pride of the Yi family. Yiqing Luo's eyes opened into a long arc as she revealed a teasing smile as she blinked her eyes innocently. A few days ago, eldest sister was punished to wash the latrine for 3 days. This punishment actually helped eldest sister to break through to the profound earth realm. Looks like eldest sister and the latrine are fated. Yiqing Qian's smiling face instantly darkened. Her stomach started to roll. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't see Yiqing Qian's expression as she giggled. It's the Academy's holidays in a few days. Why not hand the Yi family's latrine over to eldest sister to clean? Perhaps the next time we meet, eldest sister will become a sky mystic overlord cultivator. Her tone was coquettish, sweet with a hint of a young lady's innocence. Coupled with that exquisite beautiful face, it was impossible to believe that Yiqing Luo intentionally said these words, or that she really thought that Yiqing Qian would be able to advance by cleaning the latrine. Full of sarcasm. Instantly the surrounding students burst out laughing. Yiqing Qian's face was a mix of green and red as she frowned. That day when she was cleaning the latrine, it seemed to fill her nose again. Cleaning the latrine for 3 days was a memory that Yiqing Qian didn't want to recall for the rest of her life. That was the biggest stain in her life. After she was punished, the students didn't dare to laugh in front of her because she was a high profound class student, nor did they dare to mention it. But now, the culprit who caused her to be punished to clean the latrine for 3 days, was actually using this stain to ridicule her in front of all the new students. A chord in Yiqing Qian's brain snapped. That pair of gentle and lively beautiful eyes shot out an intense hatred. Just as Yiqing Qian flew into a rage and attempted to make a move, the hand that she raised was pressed down by a slender hand. Then a cold voice rang out, "Student Yi, can you tell us where you were for the entire day yesterday?" It was Lu Shuiyue. She stood in front of Yiqing Qian with her head held high and the expression on her face was as cold as usual. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as her slender brows rose slightly. Sure enough, these two people hooked up again. She had originally wanted to agitate Yiqing Qian into losing her rationality and force her to make a move. Then he asked Lu Xiaoyu to summon the instructors and directly send Yiqing Qian to the elder quarters. This way she could follow the script and continue to develop. She had not expected Lu Xiaoyu to rush over and even specially stopped Yiqing Qian. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed with ridicule as she laughed lightly. Don't tell me where I am, where I go, what I eat and what I do. I have to tell Vice President everything? Don't talk glibly, you know what you're doing. Lu Xiaoyu's face sunk. That term Vice President was simply a slap on her face. Chapter 355. Seventh Sister, you've misunderstood Xiaoyu's meaning. Yiqing Qian smiled lightly, gently put her hand on Lu Xiaoyu's shoulder and walked past her towards Yiqing Luo. The academy will be on holiday in a few days. I want to ask you if you want to go home with me. As she said, her hand naturally grabbed Yiqing Luo's hand. Yiqing Luo sneered in her heart. She understood that Yiqing Qian wanted to test if there was any whip wound on her arm. Since Yiqing Qian wanted to test, then she naturally had to give her a big gift. Yiqing Luo's gaze fell on Yiqing Qian's hand, her expression changed immediately and she took a few steps back in a panic. Elder sister, this you can't touch here. Her dodging made Yiqing Qian's eyes lit up. Especially when she saw the panic on Yiqing Luo's face, she was even more certain of her guess. If Yiqing Luo's arm was really injured, then she was definitely the intruder yesterday. Why can't I touch here? Yiqing Qian put on a puzzled look. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Let me take a look. This time, Yiqing Qian directly grabbed Yiqing Luo's wrist forcefully. She didn't forget to pretend to be concerned as she muttered. Child, you're so worrisome both at home and in the academy. If you're not feeling well, just tell me. In this academy, I'm your only family. No wonder you're a student from the high profound class. Your profound grade is extremely high. Your innate talent is strong, you're beautiful and so kind, treating your sister so well. In the training ground, a freshman stared at Yiqing Qian with an envious look. Hey, I didn't see how kind this genius from the high profound class is. Dong Huanglang spat disdainfully and looked at Yiqing Qian mockingly. Who doesn't know how to pretend, who knows what she's planning. Although the other freshmen didn't dare to say it out openly like Dong Huanglang, but they all nodded and agreed with what he said. The surrounding students were basically this batch of new students. Seeing this scene of sisterly affection, they were all suspicious. They weren't fools and their memories hadn't deteriorated. Yiqing Qian even brought Lu Xiaoyu to find trouble with Yiqing Luo in front of them. It was obvious that the relationship between the two sisters was not as good as it appeared to be. Moreover, the reason why he was waiting for Yiqing Luo at the training ground so early in the morning was to ask her if she wanted to go home together with him. The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. No matter how they looked at it, they felt that Yiqing Qian had another motive. Due to the incident where Yiqing Qian led Lu Xiaoyu to slander Yiqing Luo for violating the academy's regulations, these freshmen's impression of Yiqing Qian had long fallen to the bottom of the valley. That was how people were. When you're doing well, everyone thinks that you're doing well. But when you have the slightest stain, you will deny everything you have ever had and only remember that stain. To these freshmen, there wasn't any image of Yiqing Qian's gentleness and elegance in their minds. What existed was only the image of Yiqing Qian targeting her own sister, and in the end she went for wool and came home shorn, being punished to clean the latrine. After all, for the past half a month, although Yiqing Luo didn't interact much with them, but every time she trained, her serious and determined attitude was able to motivate everyone, persevering to complete the daily training. Even the cold-faced instructor was full of praise for Yiqing Luo. These freshmen naturally stood on Yiqing Luo's side. However, Yiqing Qian didn't notice this. Her face still hung a concerned smile, her 5 fingers locked onto Yiqing Luo's wrist, grabbing her arm. Chapter 356. Just as Yiqing Qian's hand was about to touch Yiqing Luo's bandaged wound, Yiqing Luo's arm suddenly retracted as she blinked her flustered eyes. Sister, you really can't touch it. This retraction made Yiqing Qian's hand, which was clasping her wrist, slid downwards. Yiqing Qian's grip was extremely tight, and this slip caused the thing in Yiqing Luo's tight sleeve to slip out, falling into Yiqing Qian's hand. Yiqing Qian originally clasped Yiqing Luo's wrist tightly, but after Yiqing Luo struggled free, her palm grabbed onto a soft thing. Subconsciously clenched tightly. Immediately, a lump of yellow stuff oozed out from the handkerchief and covered Yiqing Qian's hand. It was sticky and yellow stuff, and it even had a strange stench. This visual impact. Looked like a hand. Hot shit. Yiqing Qian's face instantly turned as black as charcoal. That mashed up and yellow lump reminded her of a few days ago when she was cleaning the latrine. In the process of cleaning, she couldn't help but be stained with those substances. Immediately, the feeling of tumbling in her stomach became more obvious. The smile on her face could no longer hang on. When the surrounding freshmen saw the lump of stuff in Yiqing Qian's hand, all of their expressions turned ugly and wanted to laugh. Some even held onto the wall as they retched. Sigh. Eldest sister, I said you can't touch it, look. On the contrary, Yiqing Luo, who was hiding this pile of yellow stuff, looked at Yiqing Qian with a face full of reproach. This is the mud sculpture which I had painstakingly made yesterday when I was competing with Devil Class's students and playing mud. I still wanted to bring it home and place it in my room. But the freshmen widened their eyes as they stared at the lump of stuff in Yiqing Qian's hand as their mouths twitched. Some of the freshmen had sharp ears and heard the 3 words Devil Class. It was indeed the Devil Class, which was known as the Waste Class. Other students trained hard and worked hard to learn knowledge, while Devil Class students competed in playing mud. When the freshmen thought of Yiqing Luo's performance in training, all of them felt that it was a pity. She was obviously a moldable talent, but she was allocated to the Waste Class and had to accompany a bunch of waste to play mud. This was simply ruining Yiqing Luo. Big sister, you broke my mud sculpture. You have to compensate me. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she didn't notice the gazes of the surrounding people as she spoke out in grievance. She felt wronged. She still wants me to compensate her? Yiqing Qian's expression was colorful as she was so angry that she wanted to slap Yiqing Luo to death. Putting a lump of mud in her sleeves without rhyme or reason and putting on an innocent look, Yiqing Luo was deliberately playing with her. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes blinked again as she stared at the lump of yellow substance that Yiqing Qian was stiffly carrying. After some time, her expression changed as she covered her nose and retreated backwards. Elder sister, you look like you've caught a lump of *T. It would have been better if he hadn't said it. The moment he said it, the surrounding freshmen who were suppressing their laughter and felt disgusted couldn't help but burst into laughter. Yiqing Luo, you. Yiqing Qian's face was filled with hatred as she gritted her teeth and wanted to use that lump of thing in her hand to wipe Yiqing Luo's face. But when she raised her hand, Yiqing Luo took a few steps back with a look of disgust. The lump of yellow stuff in her hand was sticky to begin with. After she raised her hand, that sticky lump of mud fell from her hand onto the ground. It looked more like a pile of *T. It's almost time for training. What are you all doing, still not lining up? Chapter 357. Instructor Ho and Instructor Chu walked over expressionlessly as they glanced coldly at Yiqing Qian with an unfriendly expression. It's freshman training time. What are you students from the high profound class doing here? Yiqing Qian had a stomach full of anger and nowhere to vent it. Now that the instructors were here, she could only swallow her anger. Instructor Chu's gaze shifted to Yiqing Qian's hand, which was raised in midair, and after a glance at the lump of yellow substance, he frowned. I heard that Student Yi was punished to clean the latrine a few days ago. I didn't expect Student Yi to fall in love with things in the latrine. But this thing is harmful after all. You are a student of the high profound class. Pay attention to your image. Don't smear the name of the high profound class. If you like this stuff, just hide in the dormitory and play with it. This was the first time the freshmen heard Instructor Chu say such a long sentence. They didn't expect him to be so humorous when he looked cold and black. The freshmen couldn't help but burst out laughing. After saying this, Instructor Chu didn't even look at Yiqing Qian. He walked directly to the middle of the training ground and shouted loudly, "A bunch of little brats, gather immediately." Yiqing Qian, who was ignored, her twisted face flushed red. She bit her lips hard, restraining the surging anger in her heart. The other party was an instructor. Even if he was a freshman instructor, she couldn't refute him. Otherwise, she would be disrespectful and didn't know how to respect the teachers. Especially in front of a group of freshmen, she might even be labeled as a bad influence. Shangguan Fangyi and Yan Zhenfei, who followed behind, saw this situation and walked over with an ugly expression. Student Xianxia, let's leave first. Obviously the two instructors were helping Yiqing Luo. They originally came to test if Yiqing Luo was the intruder in the training ground, but not only did they not succeed, they were humiliated instead. Even if they stayed, they would be a joke to the other students. There was no way to gain any advantage. If it wasn't for the fact that the training forest was a secret place, it would definitely cause panic among the students if the news spread out. They were ordered by the elders not to divulge anything. Otherwise they would directly strip Yiqing Luo's clothes and forcibly check if she was injured. Leave. Yiqing Qian's sinister beautiful eyes were covered with frost as she gave a cold humph. Why should I leave? Training is about to begin. As the eldest sister, I naturally have to take a good look and see if my seventh younger sister, who likes to play with mud, is training properly. When she mentioned the word mud, Yiqing Qian gritted her teeth. The two of them were startled, but they immediately reacted. They had all experienced the freshman training, so they naturally knew how tough and tiring it was. Based on the extent of Yiqing Qian's serious injury to that intruder last night, it was absolutely impossible for her to take on these training. Although Shangguan Fangyi and Yan Zhenfei had long dispelled their suspicions towards Yiqing Luo, one must know that Yiqing Qian had unleashed an Earth Profound practitioner's coercion yesterday. Yiqing Luo was just a yellow profound 9th grade cultivator. Her internal organs had been attacked by an Earth Profound's coercion and she was still alive and kicking in the training grounds? But looking at Yiqing Qian's ashen face and that **T, the two of them knew that she was infuriated and could only stay behind. When Yiqing Luo heard the instructor's shouts, she followed along. Lu Xiaoyu followed behind her as she stretched out her hand and hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Qing Luo, when did you hide such a thing in your sleeves? Ha ha ha, Yiqing Qian's expression is just too good. I've watched a good show so early in the morning. Chapter 358. Earlier Yiqing Qian had grabbed her wrist with a lot of strength, and in order to squeeze the mud wrapped in her sleeve into Yiqing Qian's hand, she had used a lot of strength to struggle free. This struggle had probably caused the wound on her arm to split open again. Yiqing Qian's whip yesterday was too vicious. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as she endured the pain and didn't show it on her face. Lu Xiaoyu felt Yiqing Luo's body stiffening and recalled Yiqing Luo's pale face yesterday. A trace of annoyance flashed past her eyes. She immediately loosened her hand. This morning, seeing Yiqing Luo's radiant look, she thought Yiqing Luo was fine. Her heart was filled with guilt as she followed behind Yiqing Luo, her eyes filled with worry. Standing in the team, Yiqing Luo's gaze swept past Yiqing Qian, who was standing outside the training ground, as she frowned. She knew Yiqing Qian wasn't someone who could be easily dismissed, but she didn't expect that after personally testing her to confirm that she was not injured, Yiqing Qian still hadn't dispelled the thought of suspecting her. Just a slight movement of her arm and Dmo Xian's pain relief had lost its effect. If she continued to train, her internal injury would probably worsen. Just as Yiqing Luo was waiting anxiously for Old Man Yu to appear, she suddenly heard Instructor Ho's cold voice. High profound class students, please do not disturb the freshmen's training. If you have the time, why don't you go to the square and run a few rounds? Not waiting for Yiqing Qian to reply, Instructor Ho's icy cold gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo. Student Yi, to create such a commotion early in the morning and even delay his students' training, go to the library pavilion now and clean up the second floor. If you haven't sorted it out properly, don't leave the library pavilion today. The minute he said that, Yiqing Qian's expression changed as her expression changed. She subconsciously clenched her fists but forgot that her palms were filled with sticky yellow substance. The moment she clenched her fists, the mud on her hands was squeezed out. It landed on Shangguan Fangyi and Yan Zhenfei, who were standing nearest to her. Both of their faces flushed red. Their hearts were filled with disgust, but they didn't dare to show it on their faces. Yiqing Qian was so infuriated that she was trembling and her throat felt a fishy sweetness as she almost vomited blood. She originally wanted to probe out Yiqing Luo's true colors, and as long as she was certain that Yiqing Luo was the intruder, the elder quarters would absolutely not let her off easily. He had never expected that he would become a joke. She took a deep breath and suppressed the rage in her heart. She didn't believe that Yiqing Luo could be so lucky for a few more times. With a swing of her arm, Yiqing Qian's face darkened as she turned around and left the freshman training grounds. The freshman's vision fell from Xianxia to Luo. She shook her head in sympathy. It was obviously Xianxia who came looking for trouble, but the one who was punished was Luo. Although they were freshmen, they knew that the library of the Heavenly Academy was so big that one could get lost in the toilet. To clean the library, even if they cleaned for an entire day, they might not be able to finish it. While the freshmen were pitying her, Luo heaved a sigh of relief. It was a good thing for her to clean the library and avoid training. At least in the library no one would find out that she was injured. Luo took a step forward and raised her eyes to look at Instructor Ho. Yes. When she saw the helpless and worried look in Instructor Ho's eyes, Luo suddenly understood. It looked like the instructors had discovered Xianxia's motive for looking for her. They could tell that she was indeed injured. That was why they asked her to go to the library. It was perfectly justifiable to avoid training and avoid Xianxia's sight. Chapter 359. The Heavenly Academy's library pavilion was equivalent to the modern society's library, gathering all kinds of books from the Nirvana realm. There were also many books that were lost in the outside world which could be found here. Mental cultivation methods, everything was there. But the library pavilion also had its own rules. You had to rely on your ability to speak. The first level of the library pavilion was open to all students, but most of them were ordinary books on profound qi, cultivation methods, moves, etc. Whereas the second level of the library pavilion was rumored to be divided into several categories. Each book was a famous word in the outside world, but they were all rare treasures. It was rumored that there were students on the second level who had learned many useful mental cultivation methods. However, low and intermediate profound class students were not qualified to go up to the second level of the library pavilion, nor were they qualified to borrow books back to the dormitory to read. Although high profound class students were qualified to go up to the second level, but there were restrictions. For example, the cabinet on the second level, high profound class students were absolutely not allowed to step into it. And the books on the second level could not be brought out of the library pavilion. Only the students from the class of God could enjoy all the preferential treatment in the library pavilion. Luo had originally intended to find time to visit the library pavilion after the freshman training, to familiarize herself with the situation in this strange world. She had not expected to come to the library pavilion early today. And it was directly up to the second level. Luo took the punishment slip from Instructor Ho, and under the guidance of the librarian went up to the second level. Of course, no one was envious of Luo being able to go up to the second level. As the second level was more secretive, the librarian was not qualified to stay on the second level for too long, so it had been a long time since they cleaned up. The huge second level, even if Luo went up to the second level, just cleaning up would take up an entire day. Where would she find the time to read? The second level was brightly lit, and the four sides were inlaid with fist-sized luminous pearls. The furnishings on the second level were different from the first level. The first level was row after row of bookshelves, categorized according to the area. Whereas on the second level, each category had its own individual room. As far as the eye could see, it was room after room with the category of books pasted on the door. After the librarian opened the door to the second level, he went downstairs. Luo had been enduring the pain, and now that she was alone, her face instantly turned pale and her forehead started to sweat. She looked around and confirmed that there were no high profound class students on the second floor. She then pushed a random reading room and locked the door. Leaning against the wall, she slowly sat on the floor. Luo unbuttoned her shirt, revealing half of her shoulder. The whip wound on his arm had indeed split open. At this moment, bright red blood seeped out and dyed the white gauze red. She took out the pill that Baiming Lulu had given her from the profound phoenix ring and swallowed it. Then he bandaged his wound again. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. After resting for a long time, the pain in his right arm gradually disappeared. However, she couldn't do any physical training right now. As for cleaning, she probably couldn't do it either. Luo took a deep breath, propped herself up against the wall and walked out of the reading room. She had to read through all the books on the second floor before she could sort out the best tidying plan and quickly finish the cleaning. There weren't many people on the second level and no one had tidied it up for a long time. There was a lot of dust and the categories were randomly placed. Luo walked all the way to the end of the second level and memorized all the categories on the door. His mind began to think about where to start cleaning, the easiest and most efficient way to complete the task of cleaning. Chapter 360. Someone's there? Yiqing Luo cautiously stopped her actions as her body subconsciously leaned against the wall. This voice didn't sound like a young man's voice, but an extremely deep voice, at least 30 to 40-year-old middle-aged man's voice. Heavenly Academy's students, the oldest was only 24 years old. Because Heavenly Academy had a rule, if one was unable to graduate from the academy before 25, he would be expelled from the academy directly. The library pavilion was only open to high profound class and class of God students. Even if the masters wanted to come, they had to get the approval from the elders. Because of this, when she heard this deep middle-aged man's voice, Yiqing Luo instinctively felt that this person had ill intentions. It's settled. The students will be on holiday in 2 days' time. I've already kept those few people whom his lordship had pointed out, without leaving any traces. Following that, a sinister voice was heard. This voice sounded familiar to Yiqing Luo, but she couldn't recall where she had heard this voice before. And this conversation was filled with a strange feeling, as though they were carrying out some sort of plan. Perhaps it was because this timing wasn't the time to read. Or perhaps the two of them often met here at this time of the day. These two didn't check if there was anyone on the second floor of the library pavilion and directly started their conversation. The two of them had already walked into the library pavilion and were standing in the middle of the long corridor in the middle of the reading room. Yiqing Luo was at the end of the long corridor, a long distance away from them, but the surroundings were lit up by the luminous pearls. As long as she took a slight turn, she would be exposed to these two men's line of sight. Hearing their footsteps nearing, Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. These two men's conversation was obviously a secret. If they discovered her existence, they would definitely silence her. In this academy where there were crouching tigers and hidden dragons, Yiqing Luo didn't think that she had the ability to escape from these two undetectable middle-aged men. She congealed her senses and silently recited the incantation in her heart. Her feet shook slightly as she displayed the blink movement secret art and quietly slipped into the reading room at the end of the corridor. She stuck close to the tightly shut wooden door, not daring to make any more movements. Following that, she heard the two men outside walking as they continued to speak. That freshman. Don't worry. I'm keeping a close eye on that freshman. He will absolutely not let his lordship down. When the middle-aged man heard this, he nodded with satisfaction. After a long silence, the middle-aged man said in a deep voice, adding a bit of solemnity, "Master's great plan is about to be completed. If anything happens at this critical juncture, I won't be able to protect your life. Don't worry, Lord Protector. We will do our best to serve the Lord." The middle-aged man nodded in satisfaction. "I will put in a few good words for you in front of the Lord. See you in 2 days. Many thanks to Lord Protector's great kindness. I will never forget it." Another person immediately flattered, showing his loyalty. Not long after, the corridor outside returned to silence. Yiqing Luo didn't go out immediately and didn't dare to risk releasing her perception to sense if the people outside were still around. About an hour later, the entire second floor was completely silent. Yiqing Luo then rubbed her 4 stiff limbs which had not moved at all. At this moment, the blood in her body had already numbed her entire body. As she relaxed her 4 limbs, Yiqing Luo's brain was spinning rapidly. From the conversation between the two men earlier, Yiqing Luo heard a few messages. 1. These two men were preparing to implement some plan during the Academy's holiday. 2. The few people whom they pointed out were likely to be related to the Heavenly Academy and needed those few people to complete the plan. 3. Above them was a mysterious man who was addressed as his lordship. Chapter 361. Not knowing if it was her misperception, Yiqing Luo inexplicably felt that the freshman whom they were referring to seemed to be her. These two people, who on earth were they? Moreover, why did one of their voices sound so familiar? But no matter how she searched her super strong memory, she couldn't recall who this voice belonged to. Somehow she felt that she had heard something incredible. She furrowed her brows and her expression became slightly dignified. If the news of her cleaning the second story of the library pavilion were to spread, these two people would definitely think that she had eavesdropped on their conversation. Even if they weren't sure if Yiqing Luo had really heard it. But apparently the matter they were discussing was an extremely important matter. She would rather kill wrongly than let it go. She didn't expect that she would bump into such a matter when she was punished to clean the library pavilion. She was afraid her future days were not going to be peaceful. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pinched her aching brows. This matter she would discuss it with Zhou Xian tonight. For now it was better to tidy up the second story first. Before the other party took any action, she better not let the cat out of the bag. Yiqing Luo finished stretching her limbs and was preparing to leave the room when her footsteps halted. Because the room she was in now wasn't the reading room. Earlier when she hid in, she placed all her attention on the conversation between the two and totally didn't notice the surrounding environment. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she surveyed the surroundings of the room. This wasn't a reading room but an alchemy room. In the spacious room, there were two large medicinal cabinets along the wall, and in the middle of the room were two huge wooden tables. On the wall opposite the medicinal cabinets, there was a bookshelf and books were piled messily on it. On the wooden table there was a pile of bottles and jars. Some were successfully refined pills and some failed pills, all piled up into a messy pile. On the other wooden table, there were various kinds of alchemy equipment as well as messy medicinal herbs and magical beasts' skin and bones. Why was there an alchemy room on the second story of the library pavilion? As an alchemist, upon seeing these rare medicinal herbs and pills, Yiqing Luo instantly became excited as she walked quickly to the front of the wooden table. Yiqing Luo first looked at the pill refining equipment on the table, as she started to sort out the messy pile of medicinal herbs. Every single type of herbs, Yiqing Luo would use her fingers to measure the size of these herbs, and from time to time she would sniff it. Yiqing Luo had seen these herbs in the 100 pill refining books and they were all rare and precious. But there were several herbs which Yiqing Luo couldn't identify. After Yiqing Luo had distributed these medicinal herbs, her vision turned towards the other table where those bottles and jars were. She walked over and picked up a bottle. The medicine bottle was just an ordinary porcelain, and it could not hide the faint fragrance of medicine. Yiqing Luo sniffed it and opened one of the bottles, pouring out one pill. It was a small, exquisite pill. There was even a faintly discernible flowing light on the surface of the pill. This discovery made Yiqing Luo's eyes burst out a ray of light. She had refined so many elixirs, but none of the elixirs she had refined had such a peculiar phenomenon. Putting the pills back into the bottle, Yiqing Luo casually picked up the wooden box by the side, which was filled with failed pills. The pills were full of potholes and had yet to take shape. Yiqing Luo picked up one pill and took a look. That medicinal fragrance apparently wasn't refined using ordinary pills. Chapter 362. Yiqing Luo walked around and conveniently tidied up the messy things on the table. These medicinal herbs were very light and didn't require much effort. Yiqing Luo used one hand to tidy up the things on the two tables. She noticed the medicinal cabinets and bookshelves in the room. To an alchemist, the medicinal herbs and books used to refine pills were the most interesting things in the world. Yiqing Luo was no exception. Her current level of alchemy was still stuck at the level of an alchemist. Although she was still one stage away from being a grandmaster, but the pills that the two of them refined were not just one grade apart. This alchemy room was obviously the place of a top-grade alchemist who was above her. Pills and medicinal herbs were not ordinary items. Presumably the books on the bookshelves were precious alchemy books which couldn't be found in the outside world. With this thought in mind, Yiqing Luo walked towards the bookshelves. Her hand had just touched the bookshelf and she wanted to take out a book. However, as soon as his hand touched it, before he could even react, the ground beneath his feet suddenly became empty, and his body abruptly sank. This sinking, Yiqing Luo's hand directly fell onto a slope and her entire body rolled down the slope. The pain from the wound which she had finally stopped was once again felt a heart-wrenching pain. That warm light which was released from the profound jade heart started to spread chaotically in her body. Her 5 viscera and 6 bowels were no longer covered by the warm light. Immediately, a heart-wrenching pain invaded her limbs and bones. Damn it! She was in so much pain. Yiqing Luo broke out in cold sweat as she laid on the ground with her limbs spread wide open, totally unable to move. The pain from the whip and internal injury struck her at the same time and she really couldn't take it. Lying on the ground, she panted heavily. After some time she slowly regained her senses. There was actually a secret passage in that alchemy room. She didn't know what she had bumped into, but she actually fell into the secret passage. Yiqing Luo's head moved as she checked the surrounding situation. This was an extremely spacious secret room. In the entire secret room, there was only a medicinal cauldron in the middle. At this moment, that medicinal cauldron was floating in midair, and below the medicinal cauldron was a ball of warm fire. Apparently it was in the process of refining pills. But there was no alchemist around. Yiqing Luo's eyes widened in astonishment as she carefully scanned the surroundings and released her perception. However, there was indeed no one else in the empty secret room. Girl, the person who refined this medicine cauldron should be an ancestral alchemist. Old Man Song's voice sounded in her mind. The medicine sect? Yiqing Luo was shocked. Isn't it the same level as your alchemy? The quality of this alchemist's medicine refinement should be above mine. Old Man Song sighed with emotion. Alchemists above the alchemy ancestor level can leave at any time in the middle of refining pills. Like Yiqing Luo, when she was refining the medicinal pills, she had to sit by the side of the divine dragon cauldron at all times, controlling the heart fire and observing the formation of the medicinal pills. If she could advance to the rank of a medicine master, she would be able to control her heart fire as she pleased during pill refinement. She would no longer need to watch over her pill refinement, and she would be able to save a lot of time. Last, think of a way to leave this place. Old Man Song said worriedly. If we wait for the medicine sect's alchemist to return, I'm afraid that he will mistakenly think that you're trying to steal the pills. At that time, it will be troublesome if there's a misunderstanding. Indeed troublesome. Based on Yiqing Luo's current condition, if she really met with a medicine sect's alchemist, she wouldn't even have the ability to escape. If the Heavenly Academy's medicine sect's alchemist treated her as a student who stole the pills and captured her to the director, the news of her being in the library pavilion today would probably spread throughout the entire academy. Chapter 363. Yiqing Luo shut her eyes and slept quietly for a moment. Following that, she took a deep breath and forcefully endured the intense pain as she sat up straight. The four sides were sealed off by stone walls, and the slope which she had rolled down from earlier was also sealed off by the stone wall, with no entrance to be seen. Based on Yiqing Luo's current state, there was no way to open that stone wall. This is troublesome. Old Man Song's tone was grave. I have no way to manifest my spiritual body to open this stone wall for you. Why not? Summon Shiju out to try? Yiqing Luo nodded. She couldn't use her strength. But luckily she had Shiju with her. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath and called Shiju out. Shiju was in the pet space and had already heard their conversation. The minute it appeared, it didn't need Yiqing Luo's instruction as its little body arched up. Its fur stood up and its body suddenly became huge. Roar! Shiju gave a low growl as its beast eyes were pitch black and sharp. Its huge body suddenly leapt up and its huge leopard claw directly slammed onto the stone wall. Bam! A loud sound was heard. Yiqing Luo felt the entire secret room shook thrice. But that stone wall didn't move at all, not even a single piece of debris. Yiqing Luo blinked. Shiju blinked. One human and one beast looked at each other, speechless. What the hell was this situation? Shiju's claw had used 80% of its strength and it was actually unable to break through this stone wall? What kind of place was this? So powerful. Roar roar. Shiju's eyes flashed as it raised its claw unyieldingly and slammed onto that stone wall. This claw shook the entire secret room as though it was about to collapse. Yiqing Luo's body swayed a little, causing waves of throbbing pain in her internal organs. Her slender brows creased into a bundle as she sucked in several breaths of cold air. However, the stone wall still didn't budge. Don't tell me I really have to wait for that alchemist to return before I can leave? Roar roar. Shiju's body suddenly shrunk as it nestled beside Yiqing Luo, sticking out its little tongue as it licked her face. The low whimper seemed to be apologizing to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. It's not your fault, I know you've tried your best. Looks like the owner of this secret room is a very powerful person. Even as a mirage beast, Shiju had no way of knocking open this stone wall. This was enough to prove that the medicine sect's alchemist's power was definitely at the earth mystic realm and above. Yiqing Luo had just finished her words when suddenly a light fluttering voice was heard by her ear. This little girl is quite self-aware. This voice was so cold that it seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. Before Yiqing Luo could even turn around, her body suddenly felt light as she was grabbed by her collar and forcefully pulled up. Shiju, who was lying by her side because of the sudden action, fell off Yiqing Luo's body as it waved its little claws towards the sky. This action made Yiqing Luo's internal organs feel as though they were being torn apart, causing her forehead to be filled with cold sweat. A skinny old man stood in front of him. His entire body was enveloped in a white long robe, even his head was covered tightly. This white robe didn't look like the robes of the master's or elder's quarters. It was plain and clean without any patterns, just like a clean piece of white cloth. The only adornment was the 5 golden star-shaped badge which was embedded in front of his chest. Under the long robe, that pair of malicious eyes were so cold that there wasn't a single trace of emotion. His hand easily grabbed Yiqing Luo's collar as he got closer to her. "Young lady, get out of here." Chapter 364. This throw made Yiqing Luo like a kite with a broken string as she fell out. Yiqing Luo couldn't muster up any strength, so she had no way to maintain her balance. Seeing that it was about to crash into the stone wall, that Shiju, which was sprawled on the ground, scurried towards Yiqing Luo like lightning. Its body size turned huge in time as it used its plump and huge body to block Yiqing Luo. Shiju's skin was very thick, and the moment it crashed into it, Yiqing Luo felt as though her body was falling apart as the pain was unbearable. This man. His temper was really weird. Throwing her away without any explanation, did he treat her as an object? Yiqing Luo's collar was held in Shiju's mouth as it slowly placed her on the ground. It specially laid on the ground as it used its body to support Yiqing Luo's body. "Earlier it was you, this little thing, who wanted to smash the secret room which I used 1,000-years-old crystal to create?" Long-robed old man's cold gaze shot towards Shiju. When he saw Shiju, his eyes flashed past a trace of covetous intent. "Good skeleton. Good skin." His words had just ended when the long-robed old man's figure flashed and stood in front of Yiqing Luo. Under the loose long robe, a withered yellow arm stretched out as its 5 fingers turned into a claw as it clawed towards Shiju's neck. That momentum was extremely ferocious, as though a whirlwind had struck. Mirage beasts were born with strong senses and could acutely sense the long-robed old man's murderous intent as its eyes instantly filled with a scarlet color. Its fangs bit onto Yiqing Luo's collar as it speedily retreated. Bam! A loud sound was heard as the long-robed old man's hand, which had turned into an eagle's claw, struck against the stone wall. Earlier, no matter how Shiju slammed against the stone wall, it didn't even leave a single scratch on the stone wall. That eagle's claw had actually scratched out 5 cracks. Stones splattered out as it landed on the ground. Yiqing Luo's pupils constricted as her heart was overwhelmed with shock. This old man was not an ordinary kind of powerful. Shiju was unable to smash the stone wall, but he had easily left a mark on it. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to imagine what would happen if the old man's hand had landed on Shiju's neck. Her eyes were covered with a layer of vigilance and coldness as she was worried that Shiju would be frightened. She endured the pain as she caressed Shiju's body as she patted it gently. After all, Shiju's age among the mirage beasts was only equivalent to a 7 or 8-year-old child. "Little girl, leave the magical beast. You scram." The cold voice was filled with madness and excitement. The pair of eyes under the white robe seemed to be staring at its prey, revealing a bloodthirsty delight. This old man's madness was completely unlike Gui Yu's wanton madness. It was true insanity. From this old man's tone and expression, Yiqing Luo was extremely certain that he wasn't joking. Recalling the magical beast's skin and bones on the table in the pill refining room, Yiqing Luo's heart surged with a chill. This old man wanted to use Shiju's skin, flesh, and bones to turn them into ingredients for refining medicine. "Senior, I'm a student of the devil class. Today I've been punished to the 2nd level to clean up. I didn't mean to offend Senior." Her eyes were alert, her tone was neither servile nor overbearing. She revealed her identity. For this old man to be in the Heavenly Academy and to be able to establish his own alchemist on the 2nd floor of the library pavilion, he must be one of the higher-ups in the Heavenly Academy. It was very likely that they were from the Elder Division. As a student she was protected by the academy. That old man in long robe raised his withered yellow arm and directly lifted the robe on his head, revealing a skinny little face. He was over 50 years old, his face was pale and his eyelids sunken, looking as though he was physically weak. But his dignified expression made one feel intimidated. Chapter 365. Even if I have no intention to offend you, I will absolutely not allow anyone to step into my pill refining room. Long-robed old man's lips curled into a sinister arc. Either you scram and leave the magical beast behind, or both of you and the magical beast stay behind. Looked like this old man had his eyes on her Shiju. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly, feeling helpless that she had fallen into this secret room and was thrown by the old man, causing her internal injury to relapse, and now she couldn't even teleport. Otherwise she could still make use of this skill to escape from this place. Since she couldn't escape, she couldn't possibly leave Shiju behind and leave alone. It was because Shiju's mother believed in her ability that she passed her precious son to her, to let him grow up together with her. She absolutely could not let down Shiju's mother's trust. More importantly, she, Yiqing Luo, didn't have the habit of using her companion to exchange for her own life. Seeing Yiqing Luo not moving, the old man's sinister eyes flashed past a sly sneer. That withered skinny fingers turned into a claw once again as his feet moved. His speed was so fast that Yiqing Luo couldn't catch him at all. She only felt a gust of murderous cold wind blowing towards her. Something flashed in front of Yiqing Luo and the target was still Shiju. Her breathing tightened as her right hand suddenly raised up and a feather fan opened up, sweeping a gust of strong wind. Ding! A crisp sound was heard as the old man's 5 claws crashed directly onto the feather fan. That strong force made Yiqing Luo's arm feel numb and pain. The feather fan in her hand fell onto the ground. Her uninjured hand had already lost all feeling as it lay stiffly by her side. However, Yiqing Luo's expression didn't show any signs of fear. Her face was as pale as before, but her gaze was like a torch, filled with unyielding determination. It is my companion, not a pill refining ingredient. Shiju gave a low growl as its huge beast head rubbed against Yiqing Luo's face. Its head was the size of half of Yiqing Luo's body. This rubbing made Yiqing Luo wrapped up tightly by Shiju, not revealing any part of her. It turned its head and bared its sharp fangs at the old man. Its scarlet eyes expressed its fury. One human and one beast, mutually protecting each other. He knew that he was no match for the old man, but he still placed him at the apex of his heart. Yiqing Luo's gaze was like a torch as she stared at the old man. Using Shiju's huge body as a cover, her fingers had already touched the profound phoenix ring. The long-robed old man's strike was blocked by Yiqing Luo and he was obviously astonished. When he heard her sonorous and forceful words, the old man's expression was not as cold as before. You know that magical beasts are ingredients for alchemy. The monster cores, flesh and bones of magical beasts are all good materials for alchemy. The higher the level of the magical beast, the higher the success rate of alchemy. Also, the medicinal effects of the refined pills will be stronger than ordinary pills. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips as she honestly answered the old man's question. The fact that he could talk to her nicely and didn't try to kill her at the slightest disagreement meant that there was still a possibility of peace. The old man narrowed his malicious eyes as he slowly walked towards Yiqing Luo. Every step he took, Yiqing Luo's heart tightened. Her fingers had already touched the edge of the profound phoenix ring as she took out the pain-relieving pills which Baiming Lulu had given her. The old man stopped in front of her. How did you know? Ordinary alchemists would usually follow the rules and follow the pill secret manuals as well as the pill list which they had comprehended themselves to refine pills. But in refining pills, other than the alchemist's own skills, the second most important thing was spiritual qi. Chapter 366. I've read about it in a medicinal pill book. Yiqing Luo had indeed read about it in the 100 Pills Refining book, which was about using magical beasts as medicinal ingredients to refine medicinal pills. She intentionally avoided the name of the 100 Pills Refining book. After all, this was old man Song's private collection, and from his treasured look, she knew that this book was absolutely extraordinary. As the saying goes, don't reveal your wealth. Facing such a temperamental strange old man, Yiqing Luo naturally couldn't reveal all her background. The old man propped his chin thoughtfully as he looked down at the young lady who was leaning on the mirage beast's back. Her face was extremely pale, but there wasn't a single shred of cowering expression on her face. His cold lips suddenly laughed out. "The things on the table in the pill refining room, were you the one who tidied it up?" Yiqing Luo replied with an "N," as her heart was filled with suspicions. Could it be that this old man wanted to kill her because she had touched his things? Seeing Yiqing Luo admit to it, the old man grinned as he took a step forward and kicked something. Lowering his head to take a look, it was an opened feather fan. Earlier it was this feather fan which had caught the eagle claw which he had struck out. The old man bent over with interest as he prepared to pick up the feather fan. That skinny finger was just about to touch that feather fan when a dazzling light flashed past. His finger was struck by an electric current and his entire palm felt numb. This feather fan was resisting him. The old man's sinister eyes narrowed slightly as he sized up Yiqing Luo without blinking, feeling that it was getting more and more interesting. Interested in refining pills? Yiqing Luo didn't understand the meaning of the old man's question. Her sharp eyes blinked as she met the old man's sinister and treacherous face. Her slender brows creased slightly. "What are you trying to say?" The old man straightened his back as he kicked that feather fan but didn't reply Yiqing Luo's question. He touched his sleeves but didn't seem to touch anything as the expression on his face contorted and became slightly infuriated. He flicked his sleeves as he strode towards the secret room's stone wall. That stone wall which Shiju's two claws couldn't lift earlier had an entrance split open. The old man swiftly walked out of the entrance and after a while he carried two books and threw them towards Yiqing Luo's face. Yiqing Luo couldn't avoid it as Shiju howled, and when the books flew over, it opened its mouth and held it tightly. "You have 2 hours to memorize everything on this. If you can't, I'll fulfill the sincere feelings of a man and a beast and throw the two of you into the medicine cauldron to refine medicine." Throwing this sentence, the old man flicked his sleeves and went back. The moment the stone wall disappeared and the stone wall immediately. The stone wall fell into a dead silence once again. Other than her and Shiju's breathing, there was no other sound. And he even memorized all the things on it? Could it be that this old man has an intermittent relapse disease? "Lass, don't you want to raise your own level of alchemy?" Old man Song sensed that Yiqing Luo was holding on to a book on alchemy and was in a daze, so he immediately opened his mouth. "Lass, don't you want to raise your own pill refining stage?" Old man Song sensed that Yiqing Luo was in a daze as he opened his mouth. At this stage, other than memorizing the contents of these two books, there was no other way. This was the only choice she could make. Yiqing Luo endured the pain as she shifted her body and rested her head on Shiju's back. The book then stood up against Shiju's thick claws. This book recorded all kinds of medicinal herbs. The shape, characteristics as well as the growing location and environment were written clearly. Chapter 367. This was a book for beginners in alchemy. Although Yiqing Luo had the 100-pill refining manual in her hands, but in the 100-pill refining manual, it recorded various precious pill refining methods. However, there was no detailed description of the medicinal herbs and their effects. Yiqing Luo was able to step into the medicine master stage under such a dazed situation. Other than Old Man Song and Cauldron Dragon's guidance, it was because of her strong comprehension ability which gave her an advantage. At this point, the minute Yiqing Luo saw the entry-level medicinal pill book, she was immediately engrossed in it. He couldn't even feel the pain in his body anymore. If an ordinary person were to read these books, they would find it difficult. There were too many medicinal herbs that only had a slight difference in appearance, but their medicinal effects were completely different. There were also too many herbs that he had never heard of, and their effects and uses were extremely unfamiliar. A long time ago, Yiqing Luo had developed a unique memory method. Thousands of medicinal herbs which were hard to differentiate seemed to have been copied by Yiqing Luo's eyes, as they were all imprinted in her mind. In less than 1 hour, Yiqing Luo had memorized that book. Shijue considerately bit another book and placed it beside his leg. Maintaining the same posture after regaining her senses from the sea of books, Yiqing Luo felt waves of numbness in her 4 limbs, which was extremely uncomfortable. She moved, trying to change her position so she could continue reading. But when she moved, her body twitched uncontrollably a few times. An intense pain spread from all 4 of his limbs. Roar, roar. Seeing this, Shiju let out a low roar and its pitch-black beast eyes were filled with worry. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she shook her head. She moved her fingers and took out the painkiller again. Baiming Lulu had repeatedly warned him that this kind of medicinal pill could only be taken once at most. If it was taken too closely, not only would it lose the effect of the painkiller, but it would also cause side effects. Yiqing Luo originally didn't intend to take the second pill, but after seeing this strange old man, if she didn't even have the energy to escape, it would bode ill rather than well. Damn the Yiqing Jian. By the time her body recovered, she would let Yiqing Qian suffer an even more devastating pain. Yiqing Luo was about to stuff the medicine into her mouth when suddenly a slight burst of energy struck towards her face. Yiqing Luo wanted to hide, but her body couldn't keep up with her brain's reaction. That force directly hit the back of her hand. The painkiller in his hand bounced on the ground, rolling and rolling. He rolled in front of a pair of boots. He lifted his leg and stepped on the painkiller. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she followed the direction of his legs and looked upwards. Senior, what about the agreed 2 hours? You actually dared to take this kind of inferior and harmful elixir? If you want to shorten your lifespan, I can fulfill your wish right now. The old man glanced at her coldly and walked towards her. The painkiller under his feet was crushed to pieces. Inferior quality? If Baiming Lulu heard these words, perhaps she would fly into a rage. However, the old man was right about one thing. Although this kind of pain-relieving pill could relieve the body's pain for a certain period of time, it was not enough. But such a pill was too harmful to the body. Especially if one took too many, it was very likely that they would become addicted to this type of pill. If he didn't eat it for a day, the pain would be unbearable. The old man narrowed his sinister eyes as he slowly bent down and directly grabbed Yiqing Luo's arm. Not knowing if the old man did it on purpose, this claw just happened to grab Yiqing Luo's injured arm. Chapter 368. The old man frowned, and after smelling the blood stench from Yiqing Luo's body, his expression instantly turned gloomy. He hated trouble. But the young lady who barged into his secret room kept on creating trouble for him. He wanted to settle this trouble directly with one palm, but on seeing the young lady, who was obviously immobile but in order to protect her own war pet, she stood out bravely, he suddenly felt a little reluctant. Especially when he thought of the medicinal herbs which he had made into a ball on the pill refining table, but had been sorted according to the medicinal effects, he felt even more reluctant. Moreover, this young lady actually knew how to use the magical beast's skin and bones as medicinal herbs to refine medicinal pills, to gather the spiritual qi of the pill refining, to make the medicinal effect of the pill even stronger. The old man was a pill refining maniac. This young lady was kind-hearted and calm when faced with problems. Even when facing his murderous intent, she was still able to remain calm in the face of danger. She even knew quite a bit about medicinal herbs, so the old man was filled with admiration. The old man's inner heart was struggling as he kept on scratching his head in frustration. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and didn't feel any murderous intent from the old man, so she mustered up her courage and said, I suffered some internal injuries and now I can't concentrate because of the pain. I've just finished reading a book and want to take some painkillers to concentrate on finishing the second book. Her words had just ended when Yiqing Luo's wrist was already locked by the old man. The speed was so fast that Yiqing Luo totally couldn't react in time. The old man's 2 fingers were placed on her pulse. The strength was extremely strong and Yiqing Luo totally couldn't move at all. Tiske, you really know how to torture yourself. The old man flung her hand away and shook his head in disdain. A profound cultivator in the mystic profound realm. Her body is filled with earth profound qi, her internal organs are not shattered, she's really lucky. Just 1 pulse and the old man accurately and speechlessly described Yiqing Luo's body's condition. Young lady's willpower is not bad. If it was anyone else, they would have fainted from this kind of pain. The old man seemed to be in deep thoughts as his lips twitched, revealing a smile. It was just that this smile, when paired with his cold and ruthless face, seemed exceptionally strange. The old man released Yiqing Luo's wrist and stood up. From tomorrow onwards, report to the pill refining room every day and help me clean the place. Yiqing Luo went into a blank as her eyes blinked. What the hell was this situation? Did the old man not intend to take her life? You have the foundation to differentiate the herbs. Why are you so stupid? Seeing Yiqing Luo's blank look, the old man's tone became anxious again. Little Luo quickly agreed to him. Old man Song was anxious for Yiqing Luo in the Azure Dew bracelet. This elder-level alchemist is going to teach you the ability to refine pills. Yiqing Luo remained silent for a long time. This strange old man was mysterious and unpredictable. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was his motive for making her stay behind. Don't be too happy too early. If you don't meet my requirements, I will still chase you out of here. The old man snorted coldly as he took out a jade bottle from his sleeve and threw it onto Yiqing Luo. The jade bottle was made of ordinary porcelain, and there was a faint fragrance of fresh medicine coming from the bottle cap. What painkiller pills? Pills that hurt the body? You're not allowed to casually take them in the future. The old man frowned, his thin face wrinkled. Following that, a few more books were thrown at Lin Fan's face. After that, the old man flicked his sleeves and left the secret chamber. This time round, that opened entrance didn't close up. This old man, he was really temperamental. Just a moment ago he wanted to kill her, but the next moment he treated her as one of his own. Chapter 369. Yiqing Luo didn't hesitate and popped a pill into her mouth. She didn't doubt if the strange old man's pill could cure her internal injury. If the strange old man wanted her life, it was just a snap of his fingers. There was no need to spend so much effort. The pill melted in her mouth like a warm spring water, flowing down her throat and slowly seeping into her body. That ball of warmth wrapped around her heart. The pain in her body gradually subsided. Lass, if you want to raise your alchemy level as soon as possible, you do need someone to lead you. Although this alchemist has a strange temper, but if you can get his guidance, you will soon be able to advance to a Grandmaster Alchemist. Old man Song was really envious of Lass Luo's luck. Coincidentally, he had bumped into a medicine ancestor-level alchemist and even caught the eye of the other party. With Lass Luo's aptitude, breaking through to the Grandmaster level was just around the corner. Yiqing Luo slowly opened her eyes after she had swallowed all the pill's effects. Her originally heavy and painful body became much more relaxed. She could also do some simple movements of raising her hand and getting up. Yiqing Luo placed the jade bottle into the profound phoenix ring. It was indeed a pill refined by an alchemist of Grandmaster. If she took one a day, her body would definitely recover in less than 3 days. Yiqing Luo recalled the strange old man's skinny face and her lips couldn't help but curl up. Although the strange old man's temper was a bit strange, but his character was similar to old man Gui Yu. If she stayed by his side and learned some knowledge about alchemy, it would only be beneficial to her and no harm at all. Moreover, Ziling's leg was still waiting for her to treat. Moreover, she still needed to help old man Tsong reconstruct his body. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed a trace of determination as she borrowed Shiju's strength to stand up. She stretched out her limbs. Although her body was still a little uncomfortable, it was no longer that kind of heart-wrenching pain from before. Keeping Shiju back into the pet space, Yiqing Luo left the secret room. After walking out of the secret room, she returned to the alchemy room. Before she fell into the secret room, the herbs and equipment that she had tidied up were messed up again. The 2 tables were in a terrible mess. And that strange old man was not in the medicine refining room. Just as he was about to tidy up the things on the table again, he heard a soft thud coming from outside the tightly shut door. Yiqing Luo's movements froze. Someone came to the 2nd floor of the library? The minute she recalled the plan that the 2 middle-aged men were discussing, Yiqing Luo's heart started to hang in suspense. Lower your voice. A low shout came from outside the door. When she heard this voice, Yiqing Luo's grave expression immediately relaxed. It was Qiao Jin's voice. Listening to the footsteps outside, there were about 4 people. Yiqing Luo opened the pill refining room's door and walked out, just in time to see Qiao Jin standing in the middle of the long corridor, directing the other 3 to clean up the library pavilion. Hearing footsteps behind him, Qiao Jin sharply turned his head. On seeing that it was Yiqing Luo, his face revealed a joyous expression. Student Yi, where have you been? When the other 3 heard the noise, they immediately put down what they were doing and jogged over. After they found out that Yiqing Luo was punished to the 2nd story of the library pavilion, they immediately rushed over to the 2nd story. Although she was punished to the library pavilion, it was justifiable for her to avoid training. But with Yiqing Luo's current condition, she probably couldn't even do simple cleaning. Because of this, Qiao Jin brought along 3 students to the second story to help. Chapter 370. Qiao Jin was burning with anxiety, worried that Yiqing Luo had fainted in some corner because of her body's condition. As he asked Yan Xiaoyi and the rest to clean the library pavilion, he sent out a signal for Devil Class's students to search around the academy. Following that, he searched every corner of the second story. On the second story of the library pavilion, under the situation where they were tidying and searching at the same time, Yiqing Luo finally appeared after they had tidied up halfway. "Rest here." Yiqing Luo pointed to the door behind her. Qiao Jin and the others' agitated faces instantly froze. All of them opened their mouths wide in astonishment as they rubbed their eyes and looked towards the wooden signboard on the door of that room. On the door of the room there was a wooden sign with the words, "Medicine Refinement Room." You actually entered this room?" Qiao Jin pointed at the pill refining room as his expression changed. "How long have you been resting in that room for? Didn't meet anyone?" From their expressions, Yiqing Luo could roughly guess. Earlier, that strange old man should be an influential figure in this academy. Even Qiao Jin was terror-stricken. "I met a strange old man." Yiqing Luo told them the truth. The 4 of them exchanged glances as their eyes were filled with astonishment. "Met Ghost Doctor? Then how did you walked out in one piece?" The few of them were filled with questions. Their devil class had been in the academy for so many years and they had never been afraid of anyone. Only this temperamental ghost doctor was simply hard to fathom. "Our academy's ghost doctor is the academy's #1 alchemist and he has already reached the stage of alchemy ancestor. In the entire Nirvana realm, there are probably less than 5 alchemy ancestor alchemists." When Bei Ming Lulu mentioned about pill refining and ghost doctor, her eyes were filled with obvious admiration and worship. "Ghost doctor? So that strange old man was called Ghost Doctor." Ghost Doctor's temper is too explosive and in the entire academy, other than Master Gui Yu, no one else can tolerate his character. So the academy specially set up an independent pill refining room for him on the second story of the library pavilion. The traffic on the second story of the library pavilion was lesser, and if it wasn't for the academy's special assignment, students from high profound class or class of gods wouldn't be able to find the time to read the books on the second story. To these students, instead of reading these armchair strategizing books, it was better to spend more time cultivating Xianxia and work hard to improve their Xian level. The ghost doctor's temper is really abnormally bad. No one is allowed to take a single step into his medicine refining room. Previously, I heard that Elder Yun Xiang had received the dean's orders to come to the medicine refining room to look for him, but was directly chased out by the ghost doctor. At this point, Baiming Lulu's face also collapsed. The ghost doctor never accepts disciples. There were students who wanted to learn alchemy, thinking that they could use their sincerity to move the ghost doctor. In the end, they were also kicked out. Looking at Baiming Lulu's expression, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. "Among them includes you, right? Of course. The ghost doctor is my motivation to move forward, my goal." Baiming Lulu slightly raised her head. Her clear and beautiful eyes were tinged with a trace of unswerving determination. It was an incomparably resolute gaze for the sake of one's dream, for the sake of one's goal. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes rose. The corners of her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. Heaven will not mistreat a hard-working child. Baiming Lulu rubbed her nose. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she stared at the wooden signboard behind Yiqing Luo which had the words, "Pill Refining Room." Chapter 371. Yiqing Luo remained silent for a moment. "He asked me to report to the pill refining room every day, to help him clean up." Qiao Jin. Baiming Lulu's eyes widened as she hugged her head. Tong Ziqing's little face was icy cold, but her eyes were filled with astonishment. Yan Xiaoyi's watery eyes blinked as she dug her ears, turning her head stiffly towards the 3 of them. "Am I hearing things?" The 3 of them nodded their heads in unison. It was absolutely a hallucination. Who is Ghost Doctor? He had such an explosive temper and had always been a loner. Even if the director personally came to invite him to guide the students in refining medicine, he would be kicked out directly. Yiqing Luo barged into the pill refining room and actually stayed behind. And she could report to the pill refining room every day? Clean up? Bei Ming Lu covered her face as she cried out. Qing Luo, let's exchange. I'm willing to clean up for Ghost Doctor every day. I'm willing. Are you sure after the exchange Ghost Doctor won't kick you out? Yan Xiaoyi added a cold stab. Bei Ming Lu's cries became even more mournful as the gaze she gave Yiqing Luo was filled with envy and jealousy. The crowd recalled that when Yiqing Luo first entered the academy, she was also inexplicably attracted by Gui Yu, and had been chasing after her, clamoring to take her in as his disciple. This young lady. Could it be that she had a special physique specially attracted to these crouching tigers, hidden dragons, eccentric people? She was taken in by Gui Yu and now she entered Ghost Doctor's eyes. No wonder when Yiqing Luo left the freshman training grounds, her face was still pale, as though her internal injury had worsened. But now when she came out from Ghost Doctor's pill refining room, her expression was obviously not that ugly, and she looked much more energetic. Looked like Ghost Doctor should have stepped in to treat Yiqing Luo's internal injury. With Ghost Doctor taking action, they naturally need not worry. Under everyone's jealous and envious gazes, Yiqing Luo stayed in the reading room, reading the books Ghost Doctor had left for her. Whereas the other four accepted their fate and cleaned the library pavilion's cleanliness. Although the punishment was to avoid training, but if this library pavilion wasn't cleaned properly, Xianxia's side would probably start gossiping again. This kind of busyness continued till 3 in the afternoon, when the four of them finally tidied up the entire second story's books. Yiqing Luo had also finished reading the 2 medicinal pills books. To prevent others from discovering them, Qiao Jin and the others tidied up the second floor and led the other 3 away. Before he left, he didn't forget to whisper, "Go to the class committee room later, the class monitor is waiting for you there." Long Yunzhan? Was he finally willing to return Mu Qiqi to her? She also wanted to find Long Yunzhan and ask him about the meaning of the riddle he played with Qiqi that day. Holding the punishment slip and handing it over to the administrator still couldn't believe that Yiqing Luo would be able to clean up such a huge library pavilion in such a short time. He specially went upstairs to check once to ascertain that the second story was indeed clean and tidy before he signed Yiqing Luo's punishment slip. Yiqing Luo went straight to the devil class and it was already time for training. The students lined up one by one and were jogging. Yiqing Luo walked directly towards the class committee room and along the way, it was completely silent. When she pushed open the door, there was only Long Yunzhan seated inside. "Where's Qiqi?" Yiqing Luo looked around but didn't see Qiqi. Long Yunzhan's azure blue eyes gazed deeply at Yiqing Luo as he lightly patted his sleeves. A palm-sized meatball rolled out from his sleeves. Chapter 372. These few days in order to investigate my matter, Qiqi had expended quite a bit of energy and now it's in a deep sleep state. Long Yunzhan's clear voice was extremely light. "It doesn't want me to tell you, but as its owner, there are some things that you should know." Yiqing Luo stared at that tiny ball. It was so tiny and in her hands, it was so light that she couldn't feel any weight at all. She carefully sent Qiqi into the pet space. Qiqi, who had a life contract with her, could only receive the best self-care in the pet space. Raising her eyes again, Yiqing Luo's expression was calm without any ripples. "What's going on?" "Until now, I'm not too sure what's going on and I can't believe everything that I know. But everything is real." Long Yunzhan slowly shut his eyes and when he opened them again, that pair of azure blue eyes had already been covered with a layer of gray. His look inexplicably made one's heart ache for him. That pair of azure blue eyes revealed an expression, as though he was an abandoned child, unable to find a place to return to. Even though she had many questions in her heart, Yiqing Luo didn't speak out immediately. She quietly waited for Long Yunzhan to bring it up. But this wait took an entire incense worth of time. Long Yunzhan's thick eyelashes trembled slightly, making that azure blue eyes look like ripples. After some time he finally fixed his focus on Yiqing Luo's direction. "You..." His thin lips moved slightly as though he wanted to say something. But his gaze stared at Yiqing Luo's face for some time before he immediately lowered his eyelids. "Training has started, go and train." Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Long Yunzhan was obviously looking for her because he had something to tell her. But when the words reached the tip of his tongue, he didn't say it out. Regarding the secret between Chi-Chi and him, regarding why Chi-Chi was so exhausted that it fell into a deep sleep state, regarding... There were too many things which Long Yunzhan had yet to explain. Even if he was teasing her, it shouldn't be like this, right? Yiqing Luo abruptly stood up as both her hands propped on the table. Long Yunzhan, you are attracted by Chi-Chi's sacred beast presence and can understand beast language. Tell me honestly, are you? She wasn't able to finish her question. Long Yunzhan had already stood up, opened the door and walked out. Apparently he didn't want to answer any of Yiqing Luo's questions. This Long Yunzhan was really weird. Could it be that he called her to the class committee room just to return Mu Chi-Chi to her? His heart was full of questions, but he had to keep them bottled up in his heart. The feeling of not being able to swallow or spit them out was suffocating. Yiqing Luo was unable to take part in devil classes training. After she came out of the class committee room, she went to Baiming Lulu's pharmacy to rest. It was until nighttime when Yiqing Luo left the devil class. When he returned to the dormitory, the others were not there. It was rare that Zhou Xian was not waiting for her in the dormitory. Yiqing Luo simply didn't waste any more time. Lying on the bed, she extracted her spiritual sense and entered the Azure Dew bracelet. Inside the Azure Dew bracelet, Old Man Song would be able to manifest his spiritual body and help her heal her injuries. This time, although the Azure Dew bracelet protected Yiqing Luo's internal organs, but this body really couldn't withstand the pressure of the Earth Profound stage. If she didn't recuperate properly, even if her internal injuries were healed, her body quality would deteriorate. Last Luo, remember to swallow the medicinal pills that Ghost Doctor gave you daily. Come back to the Azure Dew bracelet at night and I will help you heal. I guarantee that by tomorrow or the day after, you will be alive and kicking. Old Man Song looked at the lass in front of him who had her eyes closed as she circulated her qi to heal her injuries. Towards Yiqing Luo being taken in by another sex alchemist, it would be a lie if Old Man Song said that he wasn't resigned. Chapter 373. A spiritual body, an artifact spirit which might disappear anytime. How could it be compared to the living Ghost Doctor who had blood and flesh? Ghost Doctor was able to keep Yiqing Luo, so Old Man Song's heart indeed gave birth to some reluctance. But from the bottom of his heart he felt happy and proud for her. Not good. Last Luo, quickly withdraw your spiritual consciousness. While he was recuperating, Old Man Song suddenly sensed something and the palm which was on Yiqing Luo's back which was infusing spiritual qi suddenly retracted. Almost at the same time, Yiqing Luo who was lying on the bed opened her eyes. Right in front of her was a sharp blade glint, directly chopping down towards her head. Damn it! Why did someone want to assassinate her again? Yiqing Luo couldn't help but roared in her heart as her body had already swiftly reacted. She had just turned sideways when she heard a ding sound. That blade had chopped onto the bed. Yiqing Luo only felt the entire bed swaying. She flipped herself up and swiftly retreated. She then saw that in her room, there were two burly and muscular men. Their entire bodies were wrapped up in black cloth, only revealing a pair of murderous eyes. And the window was already wide open, blowing in a gentle cold wind. The two killers had not expected Yiqing Luo to suddenly wake up. On seeing that their assassination had failed, two palm winds suddenly struck towards Yiqing Luo. Profound qi. Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed as her squinted eyes were suffused with a sliver of chilliness. These two killers actually dared to use profound qi in Heavenly Academy. Weren't they afraid that the profound qi detection equipment around the academy would sense them? Seeing Yiqing Luo evading, the two burly men revealed a vicious look. Profound qi broke out of their bodies, raised their long blades and charged forward. Every single blade, every single attack, was aimed at Yiqing Luo's vital points. They were totally ruthless, trying to take away Yiqing Luo's life. Damn it! Who had she offended today? Yiqing Luo panted heavily, acutely sensing that these two killers were absolutely not Heavenly Academy's students, nor were they playing a prank. Judging from their combat prowess, they were definitely experienced killers who often committed murder, arson and seduction. Although Yiqing Luo had suffered internal injuries, but her body's instinctive reaction was still there. With a few flashes she quickly dodged the assassin's attack. With a cold expression she flipped her fingers and a feather fan appeared in her hand. These people were really professional killers. He could use his profound chi, but she couldn't. Moreover, she, who was suffering from internal injuries, could not summon the strength to release her profound energy. Right now, the only thing she could do was to stall the two of them until the academy sensed that there was an abnormal fluctuation of profound chi in her dormitory and brought people over. Surrender obediently. Do you still want to wait for that kid who's protecting you in the dark to save you? The burly man laughed coldly in a hoarse voice. I'm afraid he's already dead. I'll fulfill your wish today. I'll let you two be a pair of wild mandarin ducks. As he spoke, the burly man's long saber slashed down. Protecting the kid in the dark? When a phone was discovered by them, Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she expressed some doubts towards the strong man's words. Although she had not seen Wind displaying his full strength, but Wind was able to stay by Zhou Xian's side and become one of his 5 great guardians, which was enough to prove his ability. In the Heavenly Academy, there was probably no one who was Wind's opponent. Otherwise Zhou Xian would not specially let Wind hide in the dark to protect Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these killers. Her feet moved lightly and the feather fan in her hand drew a flirtatious arc in the dark night sky. She couldn't use her profound chi. However, her own footwork and her teleportation secret technique were not weak at all. Chapter 374. After exchanging blows, these two killers became more and more serious. They didn't expect that a freshman would have such keen senses and reactions. It was as if he was born to fight. She didn't unleash any profound chi. She only used that red feather fan in her hand to attack them like a dagger. Every move, every style, was direct and decisive without any hesitation. While avoiding their vital points, she was able to swiftly counterattack. This indeed made those killers who had belittled Yiqing Luo to look at her in a different light. Yiqing Luo was extremely glad that she had taken Ghost Doctor's medicinal pills, and in the Azure Dew bracelet, Old Man Song had injected his spiritual chi into her to nourish her body. So that now her injuries weren't so painful that she wanted to die. The more serious the two killers became, the more vicious they became. Yiqing Luo's room had already been overturned by the powerful profound chi, as it was scattered messily on the ground. The entire wooden board of the bed was smashed onto the ground with a pitter-patter. Such a huge commotion, how could the surrounding students not discover it? Such a powerful profound chi fluctuation, how could the academy not detect it? But she had been exchanging blows with these two killers for at least a quarter of an hour, and not even a shadow was seen. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes, as her vision looked towards that opened window. A thought arose in her mind and Yiqing Luo's feet moved as she speedily scurried up the window. Her figure was petite and with a slight bend she had already flashed out of the dormitory. Following closely behind were the two killers as they dashed towards the window at the same time. For the two of them with strong physiques, it would take some time for one of them to climb through that window. Moreover, the two of them were pouncing up at the same time. Instantly they were stuck on the window, unable to move. Seeing Yiqing Luo scurrying out of the window, her agile body scuttling nimbly along the roadside, their hearts got more anxious as their struggles became even more ferocious. Outside Yiqing Luo's window was the female dormitory's rear floor. Usually there would be at least 3 to 5 people walking around, but at this moment, as far as the eye could see, there wasn't a single figure in sight. As expected, her dormitory was set up with an enchantment. Just like every time Zhou Xian returned to her room, he would set up an enchantment beforehand. Once one was within the enchantment, one would be completely cut off from the outside world. No matter what they did in the enchantment, such as releasing profound chi, the outside world would not be able to sense it. This also meant that these two assassins had long planned to assassinate her. No response from the heavens and earth. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she swept a glance at the two killers who were still stuck at the window, gave a cold laugh and retracted her vision. The most important thing now was to find the person who set up the barrier and break it. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes scanned the surroundings sharply. The range of this barrier should be the room she lived in. In other words, it was very likely that the person who released the barrier was hiding nearby. From all directions, another two figures suddenly appeared, brandishing the long swords in their hands as they dashed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. That momentum and speed were extremely fast. Compared to the two assassins from before, they paled in comparison. The two assassins came at him menacingly, their long sabers slashing down with unerring accuracy. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes and quickly retreated a few steps back. Soon after, the feather fan in her hand opened and closed, leaving behind dazzling afterimages. It seemed like a flashy move, but every strike and every opening and closing were aimed at the assassin's vitals. Chapter 375. Who on earth sent these killers over? When she saw the two killers trying to assassinate her, Yiqing Luo thought that her actions in the academy had made some students unhappy, so she spent some money to hire these killers. Just like Shangguan Liuli previously. But she jumped out of the window and was sealed in the array barrier. There were two more powerful killers lying in ambush outside, and she didn't know how many more people were hidden in the surroundings. This kind of behavior was absolutely not what a student would do. But Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled the conversation that she had heard in the library pavilion in the morning. Could it be they had sent people over? She was punished by the instructors to clean up the second story of the library pavilion, and this matter would definitely spread like wildfire. To be able to freely enter and exit the Heavenly Academy, those two people were absolutely the higher management figures in the academy. Naturally, the news of her being in the library pavilion's second story would also spread to their ears. The secret that those people were talking about was obviously a huge plan. Because of this, no matter if Yiqing Luo had heard that conversation or not, as long as she appeared in the library pavilion's second story at that time, she would die. If it was really the killers sent by those two people. Yiqing Luo didn't dare to think any further. Bam! The ground cracked open as pieces of gravel flew in all directions. Once again the two assassins missed. The two assassins who had been stuck on the window finally got over and immediately followed up. Enemies for professional killers. On their side, a frail willow lady who had yet to recover from her internal injury and was unable to circulate her profound qi. This comparison, to be able to turn the tables, that would really be seeing a ghost. Not far from the female dormitory, on top of a tall building, a man dressed in a purple robe stood with his hands behind his back. His purple robe fluttered as though he had the bearing of a deity. Just by standing there, his entire body gave off an extremely majestic pressure. That pair of narrow peach blossom eyes were pitch black as it stared at Yiqing Luo's dormitory without blinking. Amidst the flowing light was a bundle of expression which couldn't be seen through. A black figure swiftly flashed and in a blink of an eye, knelt down in front of the man. "Overlord, I'm useless and didn't manage to protect Miss Yi properly." Ah Feng lowered his head expressionlessly. If those people hadn't used the tactic of luring the tiger away from the mountain and tricked him into leaving first, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to set up the barrier. In Dmo Xian's pitch-black pupils, sometimes a storm was blowing, sometimes it was as if it was dyed with ink, so calm that it made one flustered. Ah Feng couldn't bear the pressure and bent down a little more. "Dizun, I'm going to break the barrier." With that, the young man immediately stood up, straightened his back, gripped his sword tightly and turned to leave. "There's no need." Dmo Xian replied indifferently, unable to tell whether he was happy or angry. His vision congealed in the direction of Yiqing Luo's dormitory. Under his sleeves, his slender fingers clenched into a fist. He was suppressing his urge to raise the Heavenly Academy to the ground. He wanted to rush into the barrier and hold his woman in his arms so that she would not take any more risks. But, after a long time, Dmo Xian retracted his gaze. "It's coming." Ah Feng stopped in his tracks and turned around stiffly. Who is it referring to? Ah Feng followed Dmo Xian's gaze, and when his vision fell onto a figure, his usually expressionless mouth turned into an O shape. "Overlord, this." Dmo Xian muttered to himself for a moment and seemed to have thought of something as his eyes were covered with a layer of faint warmth, which made the lines of his entire face become much gentler. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.